Boil Over is by far one of the most toxic perks that Dead by Daylight has ever graced the Survivor players with. It used to be one of my top used perks in the entire game because it was just so OP and very useful at keeping the killer distracted and away from other teammates. That was, of course, before Dead by Daylight decided to destroy the hopes of all toxic Swifts and nerfed the crap out of the perk. The classic build of Tenacity, Flip-Flop, and Unbreakable actually still goes pretty hard in game. When the environment is just right for the perk to be worked properly, it is insanely beneficial. Hello and welcome, Sugar Boogas, to the What That Perk Do series, where I tell you, of course, what a perk does, and I give you a build or two to try out with that perk. Now, let's start off strong by telling you what exactly Boil Over can do. When the killer picks you up after you've been downed, they can no longer see any hooks within 16 meters of them, which is actually pretty useful if they haven't been paying attention to where their hook locations are. Wiggle speed is also increased up to 80% as long as you are in their grasp. Now, this can be boosted with, like what I said, the classic build that we mentioned earlier, since one of those perks in that build allows you to convert health gained in the down state into wiggle progress, making that perk combination even worse for the killer. Not to add in that if the killer falls from a quote-unquote great height while they are carrying you, you instantly gain 33% more compounded on top of your wiggle progress speed. This perk offers so many more abilities than some of the perks that we've actually covered on this channel, and it is insane that it didn't get nerfed a lot sooner than it actually did. Bonus fun fact, this perk also counters Iron Grasp, so if the killer has that, then it is basically useless. If it is used on you, especially, because you will be wiggling basically the normal rate that you would have had you not had the perk, making their Iron Grasp completely null and void. Now, we've already gone over the classic perk set that goes with this build, and honestly, it doesn't get any better than that. Of course, you can throw around a couple of different perks in there, like, for example, Adrenaline will do wonders with it, especially if you're getting slugged on the ground for the majority of the game, and you just happen to be the last one before they kick the hatch closed. It could actually turn the tide of the game for the better, and you might actually have a shot at getting out of the match. Now, you can also try out Plot Twist if you really wanted to kind of taunt the killer into picking you up, but of course that can only work so many times. You can basically bring no mither and you'd be pretty unsluggable for the game because I promise you, if you run Boil Over, you will most likely be slugged a lot. But I really don't see the fun in bringing no mither unless you're really into being toxic and want to hurt the killer's feelings as much as possible, which is just plain mean, guys. For the love of God, please don't bring that. Don't be that person. The magic in this perk can be increased based on the offerings and equipment that you bring into a match. For example, since the perk provides you with a 33% compounded wiggle progress when falling from a great height, you can actually give a map offering like, for instance, Eyrie of Crows, where there's plenty of spaces the killer can drop off of while carrying you. I know for a fact that there is a window up there in the very top of the big old tower where there's only a window and a breakable door for the killer. And if you go right there in front of the window, the killer is going to try to grab you, and odds are, if they're not smart enough, they will go through the window. You window tech them like you see in all the fun videos, and if they are a newer killer, they will hit space and they will go over the window, which will buy you more time if you're using the classic build, because you're going to be able to compound your wiggle progress speed with your healing speed, which makes it an even better perk. This is actually one of my more ideal maps for this kind of perk build because it just works perfect. Now, when the killer does come back up to grab you from that window area, you're going to basically be able to wiggle off because they have to go through the door. They're going to fall down to the ground, and that's going to allow you to just break free, just to run right back up to that window there and rinse and repeat until they get sick of you and slug you. And then they're going to ignore you. But at that point, hopefully some gens have popped from your other survivor friends, and you're closer to getting through those exit gates. You could try out the Shattered Square map as well, since that one has a pretty tall building. You want to avoid anything like the Autohaven Wreckers maps or the Cornfield maps because there's basically nowhere to really fall off of in the first place. Just some tiny little hills and tractors, and the killer is definitely not going to just take the route of the hook. They can just as easily walk down, and most of the time there's already a hook on top of those hills. So it's a pretty bad idea to even try that on those kinds of maps. You can also utilize getting down in a very tight space because the wiggle power is 80% stronger stronger, which means that you're going to be moving that killer side to side, and it is way harder for them to get through doorways, which buys you even more time to get out of their hold. You could utilize bringing a toolbox if you're in a survive with friends, because as the killer is carrying you towards the hook, they can sabotage the hook before the killer gets there, giving you even more time to wiggle out. You can also bring a flashlight if you want to try to get the killer distracted so they can't walk towards that hook faster because they're trying to avoid looking in your general direction. You might even get a blind in, which is some bonus points. And also the fun part is they might even take a swipe at you, which is again going to take time for them to recover from, and that is just seconds on the clock there for you to be getting off of the killer's shoulder. I think this perk fails so often in those 100 games before you win the 101st one is because it's so time-based and detailed. Everything is time sensitive to the very millisecond that you get put on that shoulder. What perks you bring are basically essential and are really going to make or break this entire perk. It's not actually really great on its own. It's not going to save you unless you have perks that can be time savers. Hence why the classic build is just that, a classic build, because it's almost perfect when run with boil over. Now, let me know down in the comments below what you think of boil over. Is it still a good perk, or would you run something else instead of that? And what perk is that? Do you have any ideas for an anti-hook build? Please let me know, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and subscribe if you want to see more videos in this series. Bye bye!